So the first question is really broad. Tell me any of the history that you know about her, and who built her and when.
Sure. The boat was built in 1935, and I first saw the boat in about 1980 up in Ketchikan packing fish. And I don't know anything prior to 80 what really happened, but I can tell because you get an abstract of title if you request one and so I have an abstract even with me today that tells who owned the boat. And this had a lot of owners between 1935 when it was built and now.
Yeah.
I'm the last owner, obviously. I bought it in 1993, so I've had the boat for 28 years. And what I understand is that, and Brooke, you can look at this if you want, and if you want to write some stuff down or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I understand is that it was built for herring fishing.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen one of these abstract tiles or not.
No,
before.
I haven't.
So it's cool. Since this is an official documented boat through the U.S. government.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right. They keep track of everything and all the owners, and it's much like a recording office in a town. And so let's just run to the last page real quick, which would be the earliest entries, I believe.
Once we're done recording, I'll take a picture
with
my phone.
Go ahead.
So it has I have a reel.
So what do we got here? 1935.
Okay.
And in Ketchikan. So this is actually a local boat from 1935.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yes. Whoever these unpronounceable guys' names are, who had the boat built. There's one. I looked at it this morning. Sorry. I'll let you photograph better. But anyway, it was built as a herring seiner for Southeast Alaska.
Okay.
And up in the the Midwestern Southeast Alaska, there was a big herring fishery around Point Gardner and down Chatham Straits to the south end.
Yeah.
They had herring reduction plants in all the bays back there, and not all the bays, but several of the bays.
Yeah.
And they had whaling stations back there.
Oh,
this is post whaling station. Whaling station was probably more like turn of the century, right?
Okay.
So the whales probably followed the herring, and so did the fishermen, right?
Yeah.
So this was built as a herring seiner. So it spent many years up there herring seining with. I would assume that it had a turntable on there with no power block. There was no mechanical advantage.
Yeah.
Basically. So, and when we rebuilt the deck here a couple of years ago, we saw the big timbers underneath the deck where the turntable was mounted to.
Okay, so what is it? What is a turntable?
Well, a turntable was a big, I would say a big disc. I've never used one, but it was like a big disc where when you pulled the net on board by hand, you could turn.
Oh.
And so you could help stack the gear.
Okay.
On the back deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot of labor. The boat I'm guessing, probably had 8 to 10 guys on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
no big modern power skiffs, and I don't know if they used gas boats to tow the other end or if they just set the end out with a rowboat that held in position and they circled it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah.
And I imagine with a boat this size, and the net is going to be.
I would think it'd be fairly big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then very heavy, obviously, when you're full of herring. And then they did use mechanical. They had a purse winch on the back.
Okay.
Which was chain driven or line driven off of the engine. And so there you had the power to affect everything, whether it was line driven for the winch, and then it controlled the boom lines and everything else to get the herring out. Yeah, in brailers.
Wow.
So it was a lot of work, but I have a feeling they made a lot of money back then.
Worth it.
Yeah. And Port. Where did I see this? Port out. I'm trying to think of the name of the town up there. Anyway, take a couple photos of this, and you'll recognize some Southeast, names. But that's the early history. Was that it had that it was built as a seiner.
How cool! Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have the I don't know where I got this. I don't know why I got this. But I have a builder certificate when I register the boat the first time.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah. So it signs off who built the boat
Okay.
and where it was built. It was built in Tacoma
Okay.
at Western Boat Company in Tacoma.
Okay.
Oh, and here's the original buyer here.
All right.
Politz.
Politz in Port Armstrong.
Port Armstrong.
Okay.
Yeah. And that Port Armstrong was one of those areas I was talking about.
Awesome.
Back in 35. And I think they even had a value there, fair market value of $22,000 back in the day.
Wow. Gosh, that's got to be, do the math on
Well,
that.
I can't even imagine. Well, it's what it is today, right? You build a new boat and it's $3 million or $4 million.
Yeah. So yeah, herring were worth a pretty penny then, huh?
I think they made a lot of money back then.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, that's great. So that answers, the next questions I have as part of that was when she was built. Do you know by whom? Answered that. Does she do the job she was built for? So she was built for a herring. And
she was built to herring seine, and she doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the last remnants of seining I found on the boat was when we rebuilt the deck. Like I say, we took the old pursuance off about 20 years ago. The big, huge drums, and and you could tell where it was driven, shaft driven. It had been converted to hydraulic. So the last remnants of its fishing days were probably the purse winch. Although when we replaced the timbers on the back deck, we tore out some of where the turntable was mounted.
Yeah.
And then in the lazarette, on the aft of the boat, I found one cork float from an old time seine. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's probably one of the last things that has anything to do with seine on this boat.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it does not fish anymore. We've fished crab with it.
Okay.
But not, and it wasn't designed as a crab boat, but we fished king crab and tanner crab with it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And when were you doing that?
That was 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Cool.
Yeah. It not Bering Sea stuff. This is Southeast stuff. Yeah.
You don't need to go up to the Bering Sea for that.
Way deadlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be deadly just here.
That's right.
Okay, and then obviously now
now we use it for tending. 99% of the time we use it for tending. Yeah, we go out and buy fish from smaller boats and weigh it and haul their fish back to the cannery.
Yeah, and do you tend for all boats?
No, typically we've been tending for gillnet tending. Since I've owned the boat for the last 20 years, it's been gillnet tending.
Okay.
For small gillnetters, yes.
Okay, and then do you have a particular area that you tend to?
We've spent time in many different areas. We spent a lot of time up in Lynn Canal and Icy Straits out in Excursion Inlet in Ahuna.
Yeah.
And then south of Juneau in Taku Inlet.
Okay.
Bringing fish for back then Excursion Inlet Packing Company, which became Ocean Beauty.
Okay.
And then we've worked for Trident Seafoods here in Ketchikan, down at Tree Point and up in the upper Chatham Strait. So we've been all over Southeast Alaska tending tending salmon.
Yeah.
Even out to Sitka and their fisheries out there.
Okay. Yeah. But primarily gill netting.
All gill netting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
We've been out. We were in the works of looking for a job this summer because there was a merger for two of the companies that didn't need any boats.
Oh, okay.
So we've been looking and the potential, because we do have fish pumps for salmon, for seine.
Okay.
So there's potential that if there's some small seine demand, they might use us for that.
Okay.
Also.
Yeah. So that might look different. There might be somebody else's fish on the deck this season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly.
So how, you said you became the captain in 93. Do you have anything more about that story of how you became the owner? What was your fishing experience before the Champion?
So I was deckhand on seine boats and some cannery tenders to put me through college.
Okay.
Back in the 80s, in the early to mid 80s, and when I got out of school and graduated from college, I took took my savings a few years later, and a job was offered me, and we went and bought this boat I went and bought this boat in Seattle from a gentleman there.
Okay.
And that very summer, this young girl went to work for me. Of course, I was young too, and we got married the following year. So that I met my wife on this boat.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So she just came aboard to crew?
She just came aboard to crew, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then we didn't get married on the boat, though. But as we were talking earlier, my youngest daughter got married on the boat here.
Oh, that's so
month.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So, did you fish with your kids aboard? Is that part of the?
My kids were very young when we started, and right now, as this boat was set up for probably 8 to 10 people. It was really when the boat was built. Now it's really only set up for maybe 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And so I needed 3 crew members or 2 crew members, and it wasn't enough to take the family. So I would go north every year and leave my wife and the 2 little kids.
Yeah.
Home in Ketchikan.
Yeah.
And what happened was the family grew so fast, we outgrew this boat and never bought a bigger one.
Right.
So in the summer, no, they were not in there helping me tend salmon.
Yeah.
But my wife Nancy and our kids would be with me tending herring. So once in a while we would go by gillnet and seine herring. So they would come with me.
Yeah, up in Sitka.
Yes, we did Sitka and Hobart Bay and Seymour Canal, and we were down at Cat Island and Metlakatla and Annette Island.
Okay.
Yeah, following the herring.
And then some of your kids, have they followed in a fishing path?
And we my 21-year-old boy, just 4 years ago when he was 17, bought a gillnet boat and a gillnet permit, and we're just in the process of buying another gillnet permit for my so that my 16-year-old boy can fish. As jobs this summer and last summer were non-existent for kids.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, let's give that a shot. And his plan is to not be a fisherman, but fishing can springboard him to a different career.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the way it worked for me. We had the boat and raised a family, and it gave me enough capital that I could do some training and move on, as I don't actively run the boat anymore.
Yeah. So, and now I'm
a marine pilot that gets to, navigate with these cruise ships and cargo ships in Southeast.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so the size of this boat probably played a big role in your ability to get those licenses.
Yes, it was big enough in order that I could increase my license tonnage. What they generally do is they give you a license for bigger than the tonnage of a boat that you've been on.
Okay.
So that allows you to work up a little bit, and then you go to the next step and the next step, and pretty soon you're on. This boat is over 100 gross tons. We're up over unlimited gross tonnage, but most of these ships are, 100,000 gross tons.
Okay.
So, yeah. Big difference.
Yeah. It's a little bit larger when you get into your ships.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. So what makes the Champion unique? And in that, is there something that you think I should pay more attention to when I'm photographing her?
Well, it's a good-looking boat.
She is. Yes.
It has. There was a lot of square lines on some of the earlier boats, and this has a lot of the earlier 20s and 30s boats.
Mm-hmm.
But with the pilot house and the bow, to me, it's when they started to make a more of a rounded profile for cabin corners and
mm-hmm.
wheelhouse windows and
So she's got all those pretty lines. Yeah. And then has anyone sort of stopped you, called you on the radio to share any stories about her and her past?
That's interesting. Yeah, I get that when we're driving up the straits or something. Every once in a while, somebody will call and ask, "Hey, is so and so still running the boat? I used to deliver fish there back in the '70s, or I used to work on the boat." And so that's kind of fun. It's neat that it's something that people recognize, and it's part of somebody's life before mine, even.
Yeah, that's great. You're driving around, capturing a piece of his history.
Yeah,
up and
that's
down
right.
Yeah, that's great. Now let's see. So, you spoke to it a little bit, but how has the fishing industry changed during your lifetime?
Well, probably the biggest thing that I can see is when I started, we were in the 80s. We would get, let's say, generically $1 a pound for what we would call money fish. Well, back in the 80s, you could buy a Japsco pump for $140, and you're getting $1 a pound for these fish. Well, now we're getting 50 cents a pound for the fish, or the fishermen are, in 2021 dollars, and a Japsco pump is over $1,000. So I see that it's that it seems to be dying as far as all the real money was made before, and now you need to have a big volume, and it's become more volume fishery now.
Yeah.
You need way more volume. Hatcheries are helping to increase the volume to support a price like 50 cents a pound. It's no longer the Alaska premium, paid big money for good wild run fish. So, and that's hard for me because it actually makes the work a whole lot more harder. There's a lot more fishing time, a lot more work, a lot more equipment involved to catch more fish.
Yeah.
I remember when we were tending, I was a deckhand during college, and we would work. I was just telling my son this the other day. A boat this size would be a tender for seine boats. So these seine boats would come, and we would unload 2 or 3 seine boats a week. But in July, they fished 1 day a week. And so we would get paid 7 days a week and do 1 day of fish buying and a day of traveling on either end or unloading, and then tie up and do maintenance for 3 or 4 days a week.
Oh, wow.
And all that, the fishermen were making money, the tendermen were making money, and the canneries and cold storage were making money.
Oh, that's really
so that
interesting.
just that's not there anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting, the economics and then the time involved. So do you have a favorite story about the boat or fishing that you'd like to pass on? Maybe the best day or the worst day, close call, that sort of thing.
Wow, Brooke, I wish I was prepared.
Well, we can always
follow up.
Yeah, we can do a follow-up.
So I can think up. No, weather is. I get most of the stories I would say would be weather related, because I think anybody would do this job if it was flat, calm, and no wind all the time. Right. So usually when it gets rough, it gets interesting, and that's when stuff happens. And I remember coming back from herring from Sitka one time. It was me and one other fella driving the boat down from Sitka, and we were heading for Prince Rupert. And we get down Clarence Straits towards Point Camano, which is notoriously a crummy spot when you have the wind and the current. And the deckhand had left the garbage from the galley in the bag on the back deck. And while it was rough, it had pitched around and broken the bag open, and all of the garbage plugged all the scuppers.
Oh, no.
So I was in the wheelhouse driving, and I kept leaning against the wheelhouse, the back bulkhead wall, and I kept feeling myself lean further and further back in the boat, thinking it was just the seas. Well, eventually it hit me that, hey, we're not coming back up. It doesn't feel quite right. And I went out on the back deck. I was in my tennis shoes, and I went out to look at the back deck, and it was almost completely underwater, where the spray and the seas coming over the rails didn't have a chance to limber out the scupper holes.
Yeah.
And I noticed right away it was the garbage plugging the holes. So I cleared all the scuppers, and within 2 minutes it had drained. But that was pretty nervous in the middle of the night when it's blowing, and
yeah.
So things like that make it interesting.
Yeah.
But rarely does anything ever happen in the flat, calm, nice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not when it's going to
Yeah.
happen. All right. So, this touches on it. Fishing isn't an easy lifestyle. What keeps you going?
Well, the actual fishing part isn't so easy, or staying up late, working late hours,
Mhm.
but the lifestyle that you're your own boss, and that you're responsible for your own income and the decisions you make, are what attracted me to this from the get go.
Yeah.
It's a lot like teachers, they I've heard the best thing about teaching is June, July, and August. Well, the best thing about fishing for me is September through May.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a big family to spend all
Yes.
that time with.
And we have plenty of work in the wintertime too. So
Oh, yeah.
we have stuff to do, but
Yeah.
to make money. But the lifestyle is just, it's one of these lifestyles that's just not going to be around much.
Mhm.
I can't see the fishing going away, so maybe it will be around in some form or another. But
Mhm.
that's what attracted us to it, and it's worked out well.
All right. So last question. Is there anything I should have asked? And is there anybody that I should interview?
Oh. No, we were discussing that before. Is that we talked about this gentleman up in Wrangell that does a lot of work on these boats.
Mhm.
That the more you talk to the people around here, the more you realize it really is a small community of people.
Yeah.
And everybody pretty much knows everybody, at least in the first degree, and definitely in the second degree.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what's interesting, is we're all doing the same thing, and we all stop and talk on the dock, and probably do more talking than working during the breaks between fishing.
Yeah. I find that the community of fishermen and people that live on the dock, and that piece, that like community with a community within this community, is a very interesting piece.
Yes.
And I remember when we were fishing and I was walking up the dock with my kids, and they were always like, God, why do we have to stop? How can it take an hour to get to the car? And I was like, but these are the most important interactions that we're going to have. This is the talk that's going to lead to somebody giving me a tool when I need it, or, dragging me out of a situation. So
I should be interviewing you. And that's so funny, because you learn that, because you can tell a seasoned deckhand when they're walking up the dock with a skipper, because when the skipper stops to talk with another skipper or somebody, they just keep walking. There is no waiting around, because it may take an hour or 2 hours before the skipper gets back to the boat. So you just keep doing your thing, and let the boss do what he's good at.
Yeah. He's doing his work.
That's right.
You better go do yours.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just like what you said, when you were fishing, even when you're support to the maritime industry, you pretty much just know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the welding business, you just know everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Well,
but I can't think of anybody that you would want to talk to. Well, about this boat. I mean, you see the other boats.
Yeah.
But,
actually, so I only have one gill netter on my list, the Voyager. Do you know of any other wood gill netters that I should track down?
The insurance companies aren't insuring, not wanting to insure wood boats anymore. And so, no, I do not know. I'd have to see one and then go, they're still gilling it, because it's actually a surprise when you see one.
Yeah.
And when you're out there buying fish, you do see them.
Yeah.
You do see them once in a while.
Yeah, someone mentioned the Whidbey out of Wrangell. Today I'd heard that name. And the Thor, but those were two Wrangell boats.
Yes.
But,
there's of course, Petersburg's got a lot of boats too, but that's one of the first things you do is you upgrade your boat. You go to aluminum or
Right.
Was your guys' wood?
We've had two wood boats that we fished. We had the Velvet that we converted to troll and from Seine, and then we had the Carol W that we fished in 2017.
And the reason people would buy a wood boat now is because the barrier to entry, they are a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you can buy one in a year for very little money and probably get the same amount for somebody else when to sell it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then move on. And that I feel like is a big piece of that sort of like lost history with wooden boats, because you're either in love with the boat, so you're putting that money into it for the love of it, or you're just going to be trading up because it's not economical to have a wooden boat. But.
No, it's hard. But all boats take to keep them up. They take a lot of money.
Right.
And over the years we've spent a lot of money, and
we
still got money to spend.
Yeah. Never ends.
It doesn't end. That's right.
When you had the deck work that you were talking about done, did you do that in?
I did it in Wrangell.
In Wrangell. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did rebuilt the whole back deck of the boat from the house back to the stern.
And what are they called there? It's the boat works or something?
No, they have a boat works in Wrangell. I think they just call them by the names of their.
Just a guy that's doing it.
It's just a guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And one is, you've heard this before, Tyler Thompson. When he was doing woodwork, he did a lot. We had the port side, a lot of the ribs done and planking done one year, starboard side the next year, and then we had forward in the deck. Aft, part of the aft deck done one year, and part of the forward deck done another year. So it was like 4 years of.
Did you feel a little like off when you had one deck?
The scary part, no. The scary part for me is that when they start pulling stuff apart, I have no idea how to put it back together. So it's all them. Yeah. This is not going back in the water unless because it's not me.
Right.
That's stuff that I do not know how to do.
Yeah.
And thank goodness they do. Thank goodness they have. The skill, and they're still around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, is there anyone in Ketchikan that's doing wood?
I don't know who's doing wood in Ketchikan. Yeah. There are a few people that are doing it. Some do it on their own. Mm-hmm. I do recall one interesting thing about the back deck is we needed to get some big beams because basically when we took the back deck off, we took the beams off too. So it looked just like a canoe. You're looking down into the ribs and the whole works, no deck.
Yeah.
And so I went and bought wood from round logs from Alcan Timber Products when they had them decked there at the pulp mill.
Okay.
And they delivered them over to the sawmill. And I had them cut a whole bunch of yellow cedar.
Oh wow!
Yes. Yeah. So we have lots of yellow cedar beams in the boat from Tongass wood, which is cool.
That's great. Yeah,
that was fun. Larry Jackson, I don't know if you know him.
Oh yeah,
he cut that up for me.
Okay. Yeah.
And then those guys, Tyler Thompson being one, and then Dan Thompson, who's unrelated, who's an excellent craftsman with boats. I mean, he could build a yacht. I mean, out of wood. Just his attention to detail. And so the two Thompson did all the work there on the back.
Okay. And Dan's in Wrangell as well.
And Dan's in Wrangell.
Okay.
As well. Yes.
Yeah. Neat. Cool. Yeah. Actually, Larry. It turns out that a chunk of the wood we bought for our house project was cut by Larry. We didn't even know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got a big spruce slab, and he was. Showed him a picture, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that was."
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, so a lot of people are putting aluminum on these wood boats because it's waterproof. It's easier to work with, and so the back deck, and you'll see. We'll take a look at it. The last 20 feet of back deck is aluminum with aluminum beams, and we just did not put the fir or the yellow cedar back in.
Yeah. So that's when you did the deck stuff. Then you did the aluminum on top. Yeah. Cool. Huh. All right. Well, okay. So I'm supposed to ask at the end of the interview, was there anything that you said that you're like, I don't really want that included in what goes to the museum? You want to redact anything at this point?
No, I don't want to redact anything.
Okay.
I've been editing in my head as we go. I said young lady, young girl. I guess that was probably wrong, but that's my Nancy, my wife.
I think she'll be okay with that.
Okay, well, you use your own judgment there.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think I slandered anybody. I think I did the boat justice, and there's probably plenty of more things I could tell you that just don't come to mind right now.
Yeah, yes. And hopefully, if we get a chance to go out and see her working, if that's still a possibility, depending on.
If we get a job.
If you get a job.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yes. Oh,
so
that's
see,
very
yeah.
interesting. You know who has pictures of this type of stuff? Is like LaDonna Gunderson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
LaDonna's great. Yeah.
So she has pictures because we made one of her cookbooks one time. So I know she must have taken a lot of pictures while they're actually working.
Yeah.
I have very few pictures working.
Yeah.
We work.
You're doing a little. You're doing some other stuff. Yeah.
We have lots of pictures.
Yeah.
But in fact, probably one of the most fun things we did was last year. We had a little bit of good weather in the spring.
Yeah.
It was pretty much our summer.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
And so before fishing started, we took the boat and the family, and we went up to Tracy Arm, and we went up to the Laconia Glacier.
Oh, cool.
And out into Warm Springs Bay and Chatham Straits and all these areas with the family. It was absolutely beautiful. And my son, on the way to the boat, my son bought a drone from Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
And the drone footage is just awesome. It's really cool to see the bird's eye, boat traveling and bears on the beach and icebergs and the boat going by. And that was a lot of fun. That was probably one of the most fun things we've done.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I imagine seeing that different perspective.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I will. And